Heading into the 2012 season, I was very high on the Carolina Panthers, and I thought they were going to surprise a lot of people. Well, I was a year too early. But in 2013, I was again very confident that the Carolina Panthers were going to surprise some people, and I actually picked them to win the NFC South when most people were either picking the Atlanta Falcons or the New Orleans Saints to do so. Um, it didn't look good early. They got off to that 1-3 start. They looked like boo boo, but Riverboat Ron started taking chances. His team came together. They played very, very well. They ended up winning the NFC South, getting a first round bye, and then, making the playoffs, obviously, and losing a heartbreaker to the San Francisco 49ers. So things are looking up for Carolina heading into 2014 in a way. But in a way, too, they've been depleted a little bit in terms of the offseason with free agency. This is in retirements, too, with somebody like a Jordan Gross. So a team like the Carolina Panthers, it's very important for them in this draft to retool and reload because they built up some really nice momentum in 2013. You don't want to see this organization take a step back in 2014. Part of the reason the Panthers find themselves in the position that they were in, especially last year, is because of their success over the years of drafting in the first round. And over the past 3 years, it's really been no different. Their first overall selection in 2011, Cam Newton, has established himself at least, at worst case scenario, as a franchise quarterback in the National Football League and as the franchise face of the Carolina Panthers. 2012, their first round pick, Luke Kuechly, has been everything you could expect out of an inside linebacker, everything you could expect out of a top 10 selection, and so much more. Their 2013 first round pick, Star Lotulelei, out of Utah. He was a guy, if he didn't maybe have that heart condition during the pre-draft process that everybody found out about, probably would have been a top 5, at worst top 10 pick. He was right there for Carolina at 14 and made an impact in the interior of their defense as a rookie. So again, that success, that ability to find guys in the first round that are not only hits, but are actually stars, is something that Carolina has going for them that a lot of organizations just flat out don't. The problem for the Carolina Panthers over the years, I think, has been their inability to build depth in their organization. And what I mean is all these years of missing with those mid-round picks, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh round picks. They've had a lot of misses. You want to talk about misses? Their entire 2011 class outside of Cam Newton, not very good. Questions? Their entire 2012 draft outside of Luke Kuechly, rounds 2 through 7. Again, not very good. So this is an organization that has to do a better job of building depth through the draft and do a better job of identifying players that fit them in the middle rounds. Like to me in last year's draft, where after taking Lotulelei, I totally got the concept and I understood why they would take a Kawan Short in round number 2. But again, as I talked about before, with that draft, you had Keenan Allen there in round number 2. Maybe he was the better selection for you. You get what I'm saying? I get where they're going sometimes, but it seems like with those middle and late round picks, they either gamble unnecessarily or they take guys that fit needs and don't necessarily take the best available players. Well, 2014, their organization has a chance to rectify some of those previous errors. They've got all their picks. They've got their first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round picks. So they got a total of 7 picks. And the big draft strategy, ultimately, Cam Newton is the franchise. Ultimately, Cam Newton is the man that is going to determine whether the Carolina Panthers can get to a Super Bowl in the next couple of seasons or he be the reason that they don't make it to the Super Bowl in the next couple of seasons. They must, and I emphasize again, they must find help for Cameron Newton, period. Now, with Steve Smith out of the fold, Brandon LaFell out of the fold, Ted Ginn out of the fold, they need help everywhere. Jordan Gross retiring, D'Angelo Williams getting older, Jonathan Stewart still sucking and only playing 6 or 8 games a year. They need help everywhere on the offensive side of the football. And they must find that help for Cam Newton in this draft. And in terms of draft strategy, frankly, if I'm a Carolina Panther fan, I don't want this organization to have 7 picks. I actually want this organization to roll the dice and move up in round 1 this year and get maybe a second first round pick this year. I'd say, fuck it, you go all in. I know you could sit there and say, well, they've got all this depth and all this deficiency on both sides of the ball because of what they've lost to free agency and retirements, what have you. But damn it, If you're a Panther fan, I don't think you're all that optimistic about your team being able to address depth throughout the draft because the recent history indicates that they won't, and they'll fail at it, and they'll fail at it poorly. Again, see 2011 rounds 2 through 7. See through 2012 rounds 2 through 7. Um, do you want your team to sit there and try to fix their weaknesses, or do you want them to accentuate their strengths? Shit, like I said, even if they sit there at pick number 28 in round one, maybe I would advocate them pumping a second and third round pick out and trading back up into round one in the last couple of picks and going almost like back to back with first round selections because they have needs and they need some impact players. They need them very badly. Now, fortunately for the Panthers, some of their biggest need areas are where some of the deepest positions in this draft class are, and that's a good thing. Look at wide receiver. Obviously, that is a huge need. It's obviously a huge need. When you're barking up the Jericho Cotchery tree as a guy coming into your wide receiving core, you got problems. No Steve Smith, no LaFell, no Ted Ginn. You lose your top three receivers from the previous season. You need to get Cam some help. And if you are going to keep all 7 of your picks, you need to make sure that you address that position multiple times in the draft. And again, this is a great class for you if you have needs at wide receiver because this is a very deep and talented class, rounds 1 through 7. Offensive tackle with the retirement of Jordan Gross and the ineffective play I feel at times of Bell on the other side. They need to address offensive tackle, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they chose round 1 with pick 28 to address offensive tackle with a guy like a Morgan Moses or a Joel Bitonio out of Nevada. Because again, that's a big need for that organization. The loss of Captain Munnerlin in free agency at cornerback makes corner a bigger need than maybe it should have to be. You could always sit there and say you've got Kuechly, you've got Thomas Davis, but who do you have at weak side linebacker? They could use a better weak side linebacker, maybe a guy like a Telvin Smith, for example, out of Florida State. I think they still need another tight end. I wouldn't even be opposed to them addressing tight end in round 1 or round 2 because there aren't a lot of good tight ends in this draft. So if they feel an Amaro in round 1 or a Nicholas in round 2 is worth them taking, yeah, you've got Greg Olsen, but so what? Is there any rule against having 2 tight ends? No, I don't think so. I still think they could use running back because, like I said, D'Angelo Williams is getting close to 30, I believe. Jonathan Stewart's not anybody you're ever going to be able to rely upon. In this running back class, there's a lot of talent there in rounds 4, 5, and 6, and I think it would behoove the Carolina Panthers to address that position somewhere in those rounds and maybe find a guy that could eventually become kind of that feature back for Cam Newton in the Carolina Panthers offense. Ultimately, at the end of the day, though, when all is said and done, I think this draft has to be centered around getting Cam Newton help. And I would anticipate that's what the Carolina Panthers would do. And I would anticipate that they'll hit on their first round pick, which is, again, why I would advocate them trading back up into round 1 to getting 2 first round picks, because then that way they would assure themselves 2 hits. The real key, the real question, the real challenge for this Carolina Panthers organization is if they don't do that, after they have their big success in the first round, where's that success going to come from in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? They need to do a better job of hitting on those mid-round picks if they want to sit there and become a Super Bowl contender at some point in time.